Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 148 of Percussion Discussion Podcast. Please check out all our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel. We're nearly at 2,000 subscribers now. So if you would get that over the 2,000 line, then I'd be very happy. There's no adverts on the YouTube channel, so you can watch without interruption, which is always a good thing, isn't it? All of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from your favorite podcast providers. Please rate and review, as I always ask. Some of you do, most of you don't. But if you could, really appreciate that as well. On to today's guest. Very privileged to have this gentleman, a fine drummer and a great producer from America. He's played for some of the biggest acts in the world, such as Roger Waters, R.E.M., Beck, the amazing supergroup Atoms for Peace, alongside Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Thom Yorke from Radiohead. He's a very busy guy, so I was super privileged to be able to speak to the wonderful Mr. Joey Waronker.
It's important. I could open this with this story, which was when I was a kid, I decided that I was going to get Jim Keltner to give me drum lessons when I was like 16, I think, and I started looking him up, and I called a number, and I got the Musicians Union, and they gave me a number, and I called it, and it was his like voice on a answering machine. Hey, this is Jim, leave a message. And I said I wanted drum lessons, and he actually called me back, and he said, I don't really do that, but I can recommend somebody. I'll hook you up with somebody. And there's like a bunch of kids who come, and I'll invite them to stuff, and like we're going to go see some jazz footage that's playing at UCLA. And you should come with us, and if there's ever a session I'm doing and I can invite people, I'll try to let you know. So yeah, that was like a big deal, just any recognition whatsoever. Like, he was just being nice. But yeah, I'm realizing like, oh man, I need to, even if it's like four people out there who are like what I've played, something I played on, like I should, I want to have more of that kind of spirit. I think it's so special. And anyway, that was all. Like, I have to remind myself of that. But
That's
it's
nice. That's nice. That's. I mean, if you're going to ring anybody for drum lessons, there's your man, isn't it? Let's be honest. He's done it. And I'm guessing there's more than four people out there who like what you do, so I think you're safe. You're okay. But look, I appreciate you fitting me in. I know your schedule is hectic, so we're here, and we'll make the most of the time we've got. So look, I have to say the first thing I want to just talk about. Obviously, anybody who follows your social media will see you've been posting some stuff you've been doing with Beck with Boston Pops, which looks just like the most fun, I have to say. Tell us about that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was, yes, like the most fun ever. For me, like, um, it's a world I don't understand at all. Like, even if I thought I understood it a little bit, I had, so that was just exciting, um, to actually be in a new circumstance with, truly all these gifted musicians. But I'm not in the classical world whatsoever. And, even when I think I have been, it's in a recording situation, and it's just different. So that was eye opening. And then, even like the sort of what we were doing, I think is, pretty kind of like in the classical world, like pretty basic, I guess. Um, but getting to play on the stages that we played on was really something special, in terms of I don't know, just the experience of playing with an orchestra, of course, but the way we were doing it, we were really trying to integrate the rhythm section with the orchestra so that we're not overpowering uh, them. And uh, so, that was really fun for me, to, figure out how to how to how to do that. Which was, the in my mind initially is sort of a dynamic thing, like just play really quietly, it's fine. Um, but then, in actuality was also, um, you know, stripping back what you put. Like I feel like I played pretty simple anyway, but I feel like I had to reduce, you know, even more, a lot more. And, yeah, and then the sonic thing, I was sort of prepared. I was told, be prepared, like you think you're playing quiet, but we still might ask you to like use, like, what do they call them? Like, split sticks or that
Oh,
kind of
rods,
thing,
yeah, rods, yeah.
like rods. And I
Rhythm.
was like, okay. um, but yeah, ultimately it was more about the combination of playing quiet and then just really stripping back and leaving a lot of space. Uh, and um, and then the crazy thing is that, on stage, the I'm so used to, in the whatever, like, uh world that I'm in as a musician, like you either play on a small stage or you use in-ears.
Mm.
And for orchestras, there's a lot of delay happening, and everyone sort of has to account for it.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think the people really thinking about it are the percussionists. Like I had I have a good friend who's a percussionist, and he said that he'll warm up and practice by playing 80 milliseconds ahead of a click track.
Right.
And that's just kind of how you have to think of things. You're at the back of the stage, it's just taking a little bit longer to meet the orchestra, and you don't want to sound like you're late. So there was that factor. And initially I was set up in the back of the stage with the percussion section, so that was really bizarre and didn't really work very well. And that was part of it, because I just I didn't even know about this. And then I moved to the front of the stage, which was much better, and with the rest of the rhythm section, and we just played very quietly together off to the side. And and then also, like, very important not to follow the conductor.
Yeah. He's following you.
He really, really, they really have to. They really, really do. And so that was because and I was so excited. I was like, oh, it'd be fun to watch the conductor, and but no.
So for endings and things, he was all eyes on you. I'm guessing. For any rals or rits at the end, you're putting them in, and he's following, I guess.
Oh, actually, we were. Well, the way it worked was, there was always a full run through before the show. So show day's a long day.
Yeah.
um, but so so we were able to actually, like, work some things out. But yeah, it was basically, it would always, that the endings were essentially between me. Endings and beginnings tended to be between me and the conductor.
Mhm.
And actually, I think they were doing it usually. There were sometimes I was happy to let them do it. Um, but there were sometimes where, they were like, just do your thing and I'll follow you, and it's fine. Um, but yeah, so that was cool.
A
It
whole new
worked.
challenge. Yeah, I did, and I've seen some of the footage, and I mean, luckily for well, for everybody there, really, your dynamic range is pretty exceptional. You don't have a problem playing quietly at all, do you? And still getting some beautiful sounds out of those drums. So, when you've got somebody like you in the corner, I think it makes life a lot easier.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and I know that that was the big consideration because at first I was doing a bit of research and talking to other people, and it was like, wait a minute, I'm probably going to be too like I think I'm going to be too quiet. Like, and even our front of house was worried about that. Um, and but ultimately, it sounded way more like the record
Hmm.
than which is, and that's kind of how I played on the records. Like it would just be, as playing as softly as possible, and somehow it just would have that sound. Well, as I guess we sort of know now that's how it works. Depending on, if you're recording the drums in a certain way, that's how it works.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. Well, and then and then as a kind of polar opposite, you put some footage up of an absolute giant of a kit for other Beck gigs with like rotor toms, concert toms, a total opposite end of the spectrum, isn't it? With that band. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's part of the fun. I don't know. For me, it's so fun that like I'm going from that sort of, that's one of my like, rock and roll or whatever, like kid fantasies was to, I mean, I guess I grew up really loving like John Bonham and more like this sort of simple classic rock drummers. But at a certain point, yeah, the idea, like of just going insane is so fun. And but then the other side of it is that, the like, oh, I'm in the like John Barry's band or whatever in the 60s with the orchestra was like, so what a fun summer.
you're not kidding. It must be just an incredible experience to sit behind that. I mean, I'm guessing you're a fan of the concert, Tom, anyway, because I don't know this, but obviously the Roger Waters album you did in 2017, the drum sounds on that, are they concert toms? Because I can't, they're very dry, very short staccato sounds on there. Are they concert toms, or did it vary track to track?
I think it varied, but usually, no, it definitely varied. I'm trying to remember because we recorded it at a particular studio, at Jonathan Wilson's studio, and so we were using his drum. He has all the instruments and gear, and I remember one of the kits we really liked that we used a lot. Were like, sort of almost like jazzy sounding, like
Mm.
Camcos tuned up really high, but they were very short sounding as well, like sort of dry and dead. And then I'm sure he had a set of, just like weird old concert or toms without bottom heads that look like they were, 60s Japanese. And so I know we were using those a lot.
Yeah. But
Um,
there's a song in particular, and it's Picture That, uh,
oh yeah,
which is just close your eyes, and that is classic Pink Floyd in the late '60s. That drum, that fit, that group, everything about it. Just yeah, just every time I hear that, it makes me smile. It could be Nick Mason doing that.
uh,
That's a compliment, I
cool.
think.
Yeah. No, no, I take it as that. I'm trying to remember what kit we had, but I can't. But probably the concert
Yeah,
toms.
yeah. Such an authentic. When you recorded that album, did you have a preconceived idea of the sound you wanted? Was it going to be you, or was it going to be like a tip of the hat to people that have gone before you? And what was the idea behind sounds, especially?
Well, I'll say that Nigel Godrich produced it, and he and I tend to. Well, we've worked on a lot of stuff, and
Mm,
especially at that time, we were still. sort of collaborating on stuff. Um, and he said, I don't know, we were talking about something or other, and he said, "Hey, I'm at one point he was mixing the Wall live stuff, and he said, uh, the royal we should do a solo record with Roger." It's like, oh, amazing. And so then eventually he called and said, "Hey, I'm going to get Roger to come to LA." And I'm thinking, you and Gus and eventually Jonathan Wilson. Um, and we should, just do it that way. And so, I mean, there was a spirit of sort of like, we're just doing our, working with Nigel thing, and letting him sort of, produce, but that we've all, or I've worked with him a lot. And then I think he trusts us. He's worked with the other musicians a bit. And so there was like a lot of mutual trust.
Mm.
And then I think the fact that it turned out like that is so cool, but it wasn't necessarily intentional at all. I think it was just sort of, I also think that like, we probably all have like those records as big influences for us. So, so that's very interesting that it would sort of unintentionally sort of seep out and become that. And then I think Roger steers it that way, as well, which is really cool.
So it's nice when the art. Well, I'd assume it's nice when the artist you're working for has input towards what you're doing, and I think rightly so. This should. Does he get into drum sounds and things, or is it more what you play rather than how you play it?
Yeah, I mean, all of it for sure. And I always say, like, um, yeah, I mean, he's sort of the grand architect of those of all of it. So of that catalog, and that's how he is. So it's sort of like, um, with like, I know he's intentionally not like, you know, uh, like a lot, like, a lot, well, especially in the last 10 years, producers, but probably by necessity, know every little detail about every instrument, and really, some of them, or if they do, that's how it is. If they know, they either don't know it all and just want you to like somehow magically like make make a drum track sound, like records they've heard, or they are meticulously like micromanaging like every little, part of the process of recording and drum tuning, and there's everything's set up perfectly and actually can use these sticks. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's kind of how. But but no, Roger's more of a big picture, like, you're if it's, I mean, I assume if it's really off, then it would just be like, we got to get someone who's at least we're on the same page. And then it's more about parts, and then it might be like, that's, it's not, the sound isn't working. Like we need to adjust that. But it's not like, but also at the same time, I mean, giving like drumming direction is so difficult. I think it's got to be the most difficult thing for artists and producers. I mean, yeah, because I get directions that are like, yeah, can you just make it more like, psst, psst, psst. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't. I wish that I like have to try and.
Yeah, they don't have the terminology. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It's just so hard there, and then when I break it down, I'm like, yeah, there isn't really any. And if you and to try and break it down is just, it's brutal. So so but he can be very specific when he needs to be. He'd be like, play this, and he'll, sing it and do it in a way where, I know where the beat, where one is.
Because I know the last album, Amused to Death. I mean, he that would have been I don't know when that was. Probably 15 years prior to the one you recorded. And I know he used, I believe Jeff Porcaro played on a few tracks. Denny Fongheiser, Graham Broad, and Brian McLeod, I think, all played on it. So there you go.
Wow.
So we had a real mixed bag of drummers on there. So obviously it's nice to nice to know you're solely responsible for the drums on an album.
I gotta look. Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, ooh, I didn't know. I just assumed it was all, um, or mostly Graham. But was that? I wonder if that was he was if Roger was working with a particular producer
I think
who
there was a few producers involved on that
few
one.
producers.
Yeah,
So I bet that's what it
they
was.
use the
Like,
guys as everybody knows. Because I know and you know that Graham has been on. Obviously, Graham was with Roger for an awful long time before you. And he
oh
always
yeah,
he said, Roger is great to work with, but he's a hard taskmaster. He said he'll take no prisoners. Is that have you found the same? I mean, he would say, for example, if you were on a plane ride somewhere, he said Roger would say, "No, you're sitting by me, and I've got my notebook, and on the fifth bar of this whatever, this isn't right." Did you find that was the same?
well, I found that. I mean, it was very well. The thing that's sort of um, took me by surprise was how sort of organized and thoughtful it always was and it has been. But yeah, usually it would. Well, there could be times where it'd be like, "Hey, I have an idea," and
Mm.
he would go over it. So, which is, I don't know. I always found it really inspiring uh, like, well, super interesting because also I was like, oh my God, this is, even 5 years after 5 years, I was still like, oh my God, Roger Waters is like, you know, critiquing how I'm playing or whatever. That's so cool to me. That was sort of always my uh, default for for whatever reason. Um, but well, yeah, and then also his ideas were always, like I said, it just seemed like, oh my God, that's so organized. I mean, and I'm sure like later I would like, some I don't know. It was never overbearing though.
Hmm.
It never felt, but, and maybe I've played with so many people. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, played with a lot of people. And I'm used to different work ethics. And so, and all artists are, you know, there's a reason they are, we're artists or whatever, but, um, and not, like holding down a 9 to 5, a regular job or something. But,
Hmm.
in my mind anyway, like you just, but, yeah, usually the work ethic can be erratic. And so like to work with someone who's like, so, obviously like probably works harder. I mean, like took notes to, always like working. But to me, that was very inspiring and
Hmm.
engaging. It was like, oh, wow, this is a really joyful process that we're in, instead of like, the way tours can sometimes feel like, oh my God, okay, this is the 20th show. Here we go again. Like, can't wait till it's, that can set in even when you're saying, trying to think that it's not, and then there are different ways of like offsetting that. And to me, I liked the Roger way the best, which was like, let's let's always pay it. like pay attention and like see what we can shift around to make more interesting or improve. Just kept it, to me it was like, wow, this is fresh the whole time. And because I could see how, well, it just always happens. You're on a tour and you're like, even when you're changing the set around a lot, it's still, you can sink into this like autopilot mode where you're not, you're thinking about what you're going to do after the show, or like, oh wow, we're going to be in London tomorrow. Like, what, where should I go for breakfast?
So that even happens when you play into 25,000 people. That's still the same.
That's the thing. Well, and even maybe more so because, well, particularly, yeah, even more so, because the stage is sort of removed, the audience feels more anonymous a little bit, even though the energy is insane, is so powerful. But you can't really see people
Yeah.
very well. Maybe that's just because of my eyes, but no, you can't see people as well. And yeah, I mean, when you do a small show, also you're like, oh yeah, maybe oh, I know that I know some people here, or there's some familiarity or something like that. But no, and when you're doing the same show, I think it's really easy to fall into that. And so I mean, maybe it's me also, like I'm always looking for ways to not, like, how can I keep this fun and exciting? How can I, like, you know, I'm going to do the same, I have to do the same fill, but how can I make it slightly different like in a micro way that's interesting or something like that? Or how do I stay inspired, basically? So
So you do have the freedom to to change things up moderately from your angle without
yeah,
without making it into the book and getting the seat next to you on the flight. Um, so,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'm sure that happened, but maybe I just sort of didn't, I was, it didn't feel, uh, uh, like, I don't know, I was being put to task or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It felt, I guess I welcomed it. But I feel like, also, yeah, I was maybe, um, well, no, everybody, he was like paying attention to, he's always paying attention to everyone, I should say, but
Yeah.
like it might come around to me. It would feel like it wasn't overbearing
Yeah.
for me, for sure.
Well, that's good because I mean, you were out for a long time, weren't you? Let's be honest. That's
Oh my God.
hell of a run.
Oh, like, yeah, was it last year, I guess? Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. And then I'm really insane because I did a Beck tour as well. There
Back
was
to
like,
back.
yeah,
Wow, that's.
I was insane.
Are you happier when you're working though? Because I know you've got a youngish son as well. Uh,
Correct. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it must be tough out on the road, not seeing family and things.
I know. And no, I mean, I never, like, I thought when I was, um, when my son came along, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not really interested in touring that much. So this is perfect.
Mm.
Yeah. And then everything shifted radically. But and then the interesting thing about also like a tour like with Roger is, um, there's space for family to be there.
Ah,
So when I mean, and that obviously it's not going to work depending on what age you're at, but like he's, in the thick of it, like they were able to, and unfortunately, like wanted to to come and visit, and yeah, and there was a way, it was always possible, like sometimes we would be in the same place for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So like you can really do it. So I was like, okay, I can see making this work. Whereas, yeah, like other a normal, whatever, what I call normal touring, what I'm used to, that, yeah, if I was going to go and do, they're shorter tours, but if someone said, hey, we're doing a 6-week tour, there's no way that family can visit.
Mm.
So, but then, and then of course, also in the Beck tour, we're, I've known that crew, Beck and everyone, for so long. So it really does feel like family. And it felt,
Sure.
so I also knew that, like, and in a way it was like for my family, this so strange, but I was like, hey, I'm Beck, it's almost like Uncle Beck wants me to do this tour this summer, and we could
Uncle Beck.
go.
I
And
like that.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, oh that sounds, oh yeah, I love going to New York, and I love going to different, oh wow, Red Rocks, that looks so cool, like, so it worked in that way. But even so, yeah, it's a lot of time apart regardless.
It's just one of
But
the downfalls of the business, unfortunately, isn't it? You just got to do what you can.
yeah, and my thing, the dilemma for me was like, well, wait a minute, am I going to be there and shift what I do, and is that better for me, or do I do this and show, kind of show that I'm like doing something that I really love, and that, hey, it's okay to do things that you really love, and you can still keep keep your love, the people you love, close. And nothing's ever perfect, maybe nothing's ever perfect, but this is a not a bad option. I mean, I have a friend also, this kind of influenced me, who always talked about, he had a parent who quit, who was a musician and quit playing and became like a salesman, to be in the family. And that, how basically what a rough uh, relationship my friend had with his parent, because of he said he just always, it was his father who always seemed to, could tell he always sort of longed for the thing he kind of gave up on.
Mm.
And he put so much weight on their relationship, like, because he chose being a father instead of being a musician, and suddenly like this guy felt the weight of the world from, oh my God, I replaced the thing he really wanted to do, and I wish he just did it. And so I remember he told me that, and I was like, ah,
What do you say?
maybe I
What do you say?
maybe I was like, wow, I no, I was like, man, that's tough. And in my mind, I was like, I think I'm going to take the tour. And then,
Skype
when
or Zoom will be all right. FaceTime, it'll be cool.
well, they'll just come out, and
Yeah.
because I knew that they wanted to, and it's okay. Again, like, depending on the age, like, there's a certain point where it's just not going to, he's too old, and he's going to need to be home more. So then, but like, yeah, that's what I do. So, how do I change it, or isn't there, or do I just, show that it's what I do and I love it, and I'm also, I'm also present. So,
Well, that sounds like a good happy medium, that I think, and you just and plus, when you get 2 years worth of work in the diary, it's very difficult to say, let me think about it. That's huge, isn't it?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so it's also like, the other thing is, even when I'm super busy at home, like, I'm still basically like, at home, like, I can take him to school, pick him up from school, do, like that works into my schedule
Sure.
very much. So like, so at least that, I mean, it's not a good trade-off, but it is kind of cool that I'm able to be, or, I can go on the school camping trip or
Hmm. You can
that
still do
kind of,
dad, basically. Yeah.
like I can do dad stuff, which, is definitely, I can be around more.
Hmm.
And yeah. And I just tell, and I'm really lucky and I do recording sessions and either, usually I just say I have to be home, by dinner. It's, and then some, there were times too where people would be like, we're kind of on a late schedule, and I'm like, cool, great. That actually works because I'll just, I can be dad and then I'll just, it's a little exhausting, but I can, sure, I'll come in late and, be in the studio from like 8 to 12 or whatever. And it's not that bad.
Sure. Nah. Well, it sounds like you've got the job sorted, I have to say. It does.
Thank you.
Now, you seem to have an affiliation working for British guys, obviously Roger Waters, and in the past you've done some stuff with Liam Gallagher and John Squire as well, which was a great record, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about that because it was late. Oh gosh, would it have been late 23? Which
That
was
was the other thing.
last year.
Yeah, that was the crazy last year. Like my friend, really, really dear friend Greg Kirsten, who's producing that, um, called me and asked me if I could play on it. And yeah, and I was like, oh man, I literally have 5 days off at home because I'd taken this Beck tour. I was like, oh my God. And he's like, well, wait, when is it? And I was like, yeah, but I don't think I could
Was this
do
in
that
between the
tonight.
two tours?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and he was like, well, wait a minute. Well, and then I know Greg too. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, but you're fast and like you're gonna want to work from like 9, it's kind of like dad style, like drop drop off kids at school, go to studio, and then be home by dinner at the latest. And yeah, sure enough, he was like, hey, I'll like we can work dad hours and we can probably, I knew with him too, it's like, oh God, we'll probably do it in 3 days.
Yeah.
um and so yeah, we recorded and it was super fun and it was really in like it was exactly kind of how I played when I was like in a college in my band in my college age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, when I heard the songs, I was like, oh, I think like I get to just use those instincts and don't even think about it,
Hmm.
and they'll, it's going to work. And it's fortunately that's exactly what happened. So it was really like such a joy for me because it was like, doing something I never, or I just don't really get to do, but doing an
Yeah.
entire album of that style was awesome.
It's quite refreshing to just go in and play.
Just play, yeah, like yeah, one setup, and that's yeah, sort of band rock band style.
Yeah. Yeah. Not having to worry
Beautiful.
about different drums for this and a different snare sound for this. Just
Oh, amazing. Yeah, get one drum sound. And like I think there was one song where Greg was like, you know let's try it. Wait, can we try the snare I have? But yeah, otherwise it was just the same. Like 9 out of 10 songs, same snare.
wow. That doesn't happen often these days, does it?
Never.
No.
I loved it. So yeah, so that was just great. And then I kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, they're gonna do a tour. I will admit, I was like, I mean, I was so excited. They're like, we're gonna do a tour, and you got to do it. And in my mind, I was like picturing summer festivals,
Yeah.
and they were like, they just want to do the songs from the record, so they don't have to do, like Stone Roses or Oasis or whatever,
Sure.
or Liam stuff, like just the
Just the album.
material. And it's going to be February to April. And it's like in mostly Northern England. I was like, oh,
Um,
as you know, as a Los Angeles native,
yeah.
like, oh man, okay. But
Do you have
it was
enough
super
clothes
fun.
to do that? Enough warm clothes?
I know. I'm like, I guess, yeah. Can you? Yeah, it's like get my rain gear together, and but it was so fun. I loved it. It was really great.
I mean, I didn't get to see a show, but was it kind of just raw, full on rock and roll? Again, same enjoyment as recording the album, just full on.
Yeah, it was. It was. Oh wait, oh, sorry. My family's shouting at me.
Oh, don't worry.
Um, Wait, hold on. Hey, Nico, I'm doing an interview right now. Yeah, so I'll come help you in a bit. No, not right now. Um, what were we saying?
Oh, don't
Wait,
worry. I'll
remind
edit
me
that
where
out.
we were.
I'll edit that out. That's fine.
Okay, thank
I was
you.
just saying, was it like full on rock and roll, just like the album recording? No, I'm guessing there was no in ears or anything. Just go for it.
It was just like the album, and I mean, I did use in-ears, but oh no, and in-ears were good because there were like two songs where there was a drum machine
Ah,
that we play. I mean, there were barely any tracks like that. Yeah, and then it was cool. Like I don't know, I just, but only because I'm used to it at this point. Um, but yeah, yeah. Basically, I don't think anyone else did
mm,
used in ears. And then let's see. Yeah, we just did little theaters. No, I mean littles, but theaters are
yeah,
for those personalities that must have felt so fun, tiny, like tiny,
sure it was.
uh, three, like 2 to 3,000 people, and yeah, it was amazing.
Mm,
So yeah, that was so fun, and yeah, it was just like literally like the songs from the album in one cover,
perfect.
and yeah, so it was like a 60-minute set, I think, altogether. So um yeah, like I haven't done anything like that in forever. It's really great.
And do you like playing venues of that size?
I do. I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
I love it. I mean it's all different. I got used to the level of excitement from the from bigger shows as well, like and that, yeah, and I got so used to it, and then it was like I love doing this. And but the theater is great.
yeah,
Is just a little is kind of, I see why certain artists are like, I just want to do that. Like when certain artists get huge, they want to do, it's kind of like the perfect balance of intimate and but there's still a lot of people.
sure, sure. Look, I know you've got to shoot off soon, but before we do, I would love to talk Atoms for Peace because and I think you'd describe it as a supergroup, but the craziest supergroup lineup you wouldn't think it would work on paper, would you? Let's be honest, obviously, yes. Just tell us a little bit about it, because and how it happened, because that's crazy in a good way.
um yeah, it was, yeah, Nigel and I were doing a lot of stuff to get together, whether he was kind of like always inviting me in on things he was working on. And then we were doing Ultra Easta together, and and I don't know. And then there was just a lot of sort of like socializing, I think, like um and And I think I don't know, it just kind of came out of the blue, and Thom sort of had the idea to do that kind of a lot, like the lineup that we were,
Mm.
uh, and had it all kind of mapped out. And yeah, and the initial and the whole concept, which was, let's reinterpret, like do a live interpretation of a solo record, The Eraser, and see if that leads to something. Um, so yeah, and it worked out. So then we were able to kind of like formulate um, a sound as a live band by going through that exercise of reinterpreting The Eraser, and then we were able to kind of like come up with material that would be, I guess, Amok, the
Mm.
Ends for Peace record.
Sure. Because that album, the drums, they don't. How do I put this? They don't sound always like a live kit. So I'm assuming they are, but that's the way you wanted it to sound, almost an electronic sound, uh, kind of.
No, I agree. I'll say also, I think there was there like the live shows, and like maybe there was like, the initial versions of those songs were probably more live sounding.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, and then it sort of got tweaked into sounding more like, whoa, is it electronic or is it um live? And I'm not, yeah. And then I think there was a sort of, well, I don't know, maybe it was just me, and maybe some of us were like, whoa, what would it be like if we just like confidently allowed it to be the live thing with minimal, there's always going to be electronics, but with minimal electronics, like what would happen? So we never got there, unfortunately, but
Oh, it's
that's okay.
you never know. You probably haven't got. I mean, can you imagine trying to get your schedules together now? It would just be nigh on
Oh
impossible.
no, no, it's done.
Yeah, done. Just a happy memory.
It's done. It's a happy memory. It was a very happy memory, actually. Yeah, the best times of, well, no, I have a lot of best times in my life, but that was definitely a good run
I can
for
imagine.
sure.
And what's it work? What's it like working with Flea? In a rhythm section. It must be amazing because that fella's got some energy, hasn't he? Both just him and his playing, energetic playing.
Just incredible. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you have to, yeah, it was just the exactly, like, so full of energy and spirit.
Mm.
And then I also learned, like, yeah, he's like the perfect sort of um like, so generally positive.
Mm.
Like, he's the guy you want on tour. Like, I've rarely been with anyone like that. And I think, sometimes he might disappear a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, and that's, instead of being like grumpy around everyone, he like figures out a way to like be on his own or something. But I was like, wow, that's so cool, like, to be so like genuinely like uh, we're here to have fun, like, for sure. Like, that's, we've all decided to do this. Like, there's no one had, certainly there's no guns to anybody's heads
No,
here. And
no, no.
uh uh but to actually be able to like keep like remembering that, and every show has that sort of like that focus, and it was very inspiring. Like, every time I was like, oh my god, I never want to lose that. So that was, I'm grateful for that.
Wow. As you
Want to play with him again? Maybe I will.
Yeah, you should. You
Cool.
should.
Yeah, man. Occasionally, bump in, cross paths. It's really cool.
Mm. As you say, a great memory to have, and it's yeah. Well, look, Joey, I know you've got stuff to do, so I don't want to keep you any longer, but there's about a million things that we haven't talked about. So I'm gonna cheekily ask you now, and you feel free to say no. Do you reckon you maybe squeeze a part two in at some point? Would you be up for that?
I would, I would love a part two.
Cool.
Please. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Let me know.
Definitely.
Let me know. And particularly, like, yeah, like let's do it sooner than later, actually.
That sounds good to me. Well, look, Joey, thanks so much. And again, I really appreciate you giving your time up and out of your crazy schedule. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry. It's particularly hectic right now. It's not always like this, but
Right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Joey.
take care, Maddie.
Thank you.
Take care, man. Great to
Thank
talk
you.
to you.
Yeah, we